happens with the dope game is the higher up you go, the easier it gets. When I first started, I'm standing out on the street. Once I got up to ounces, I could move in the apartment. And I got guys open the door. You know, they got guns to watch, make sure nobody rob me. When you start getting pounds, you get to the point where you got a guy sitting at the table and he's serving everybody. You got another guy answering the door and you just sitting there, you just eating, entertaining girls. Some people just want something, and then some people really want it. When I sold drug, I was willing to die or kill. I put on a bulletproof vest. I wake up some morning, I put my vest on, pistol, and be like, man, go down the dead, go down. You know, this is how it is. When I was coming up, I wanted a job. Couldn't fill out the application, so I couldn't get a job from McDonald's.
Yeah, because you didn't know how to read or write.
Couldn't read or write, so they wasn't gonna say, oh, well, you can't read or write, but you're a hard worker. You know, they didn't know that I would be the first one there every morning. Even though I wasn't getting paid, I'd still wash the windows and sweep the sidewalks, and they didn't know I would have did all that. I couldn't tell them in the application. You know, I couldn't explain to them, and nobody would talk to you verbally, so I couldn't get a shot. So drugs was my first opportunity, you know, where I didn't have to fill out an application.
So do you think that the CIA is responsible for the crack, you know, everything that happened with crack cocaine?
Wow, good question.
Freeway Rick Ross, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Yes, all the way in San Diego, man.
Well, thanks for coming down here. I appreciate it.
Yes, no problem.
For those of you that don't know this guy,
Who
an
is
absolute living legend.
Who is that?
The audience of Thinking Bigger with Kevin Pheley.
What's up, audience?
So tell them a little bit about you if they don't know.
Wow. Where do we start, man? Grew up in L.A., lived here in San Diego, right down the street from here for 6 years.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, you were in jail down here.
I had $1 million view, man. I got to see the ships come in, the aircraft carriers go in and out. So, you know, I had a great view, you know. Started playing tennis, you know, when I was around 13, and I'm so glad that I did because my life could have turned out so much different. Even though I did 20 years in prison, I had a friend that just got out and did 45 years in prison, and he didn't make no money. So I was like, wow, what a lucky guy. And, you know, this guy hung out in elementary school together. We were friends, and sort of friends in junior high, but you know, he started going a little harder than I was going, and then I started playing tennis, so I got all the way from the hardness and started chasing the green ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
And you grew up in a Crip neighborhood in L.A., right?
Yeah, I grew up in a Crip neighborhood. Now I live in a Blood neighborhood. Yeah, I grew up in Hoover Crip hood, and right now I live in Denver Lane hood. Interesting, you know, to live in different gang territories. But you know, I was pretty cool with both sides, you know, by not being affiliated.
Yeah.
You know, associated but not affiliated.
Yeah, at a distance. And
yeah. It's dangerous.
Yeah. Well, you said that playing tennis kept you from becoming a Crip, right?
Probably so. If I was making a guess about it, I would say tennis probably saved my life.
Wow.
You know, in more ways than one. You know, because it was really a vulnerable time for me when I picked up tennis, and I was getting to that point to where mom's whoopings wasn't starting to matter anymore.
Yeah.
And it was getting to the point to where I didn't know if I was going to be taking whoopings. Mm-hmm. You know, like, hold up, man, I'm grown now.
Yeah.
I'm 14 years old. You ain't with me no more, you know, like that, dear. Definitely, I had roared up at her husband a couple times, like, you ain't none of my daddy.
Yeah.
You know, don't you be talking to me like that. So, yeah, I really, really, really appreciate tennis, you know, and I almost forced all of my kids to play. All
really?
of them played. Yeah. All of my kids played tennis. Knock on wood. 2 of them went to prison. I mean, 2 of them been in prison, you know, but not long times.
Yeah.
And since I've been home, none of them have been back to jail at all. So, you know, I take some credit for that. You know, when I was in jail, they were, you know, 2 of my sons were in and out all the time. But yeah, they kind of finding their way now.
Right. Amazing. So how many kids you have?
8 or 9.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, 8 or 9.
All
I
right.
like kids.
Yeah. I got my first one coming in April.
Congratulations.
Thank
Nothing
you.
like them.
Yeah.
She's a life changer.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, my goodness. Don't have no girl.
Oh man, that's my first one.
A
I
girl?
got a girl coming in
Oh,
April.
my goodness. She going to melt you. You're done.
That's what my girl says.
You're done.
Yeah.
My daughters, because I mean, my oldest 2 daughters, you know, when I left, they were young still. But now, you know, now my youngest daughter is 11, plays tennis, and you know, she thinks she runs me, and I'm probably soft on her. You know, the
Yeah.
tennis coach was like, man, you always cater to your daughter. You don't never cater to Bryson. So yeah, daughters, they special, man. They touch you in a special way.
All right. Yeah, one of my friends had a really good quote. Shout out to Whitney. She said, a large part of your soul lives outside of your body until you have kids. Do you think that's true?
Possible, yeah. Yeah, you know, kids will make you do certain things, you know. My kids stopped me from smoking weed.
Yeah.
You know, when I was smoking weed, they was the reason I stopped. Selling cocaine, you know, they were part of the reason I stopped selling cocaine. You know, I wanted to be there with them. You know, so yeah, they would do things to you that nobody else can do.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm ready for the challenge.
Yeah, congratulations again.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So, so you grew up in LA, and you know, you grew up when I mean, I remember that you had mentioned that the Crips were kind of becoming a thing when you were growing up, right? So it wasn't like it is nowadays when people think of
nothing
you know.
like it is now. You know, when I was growing up in South Central LA, there was hardly any killings. You know, it was a pretty safe place to play. Like my mom would let us play out on the streets. You know, all day we played football right on the streets. We'd ride our bike from the house to the beach, and it was fairly safe. You know, it was a different time. Definitely a different time. I mean, this new breed of gangsters that we have now, they don't look at life the same as the guys that I grew up with. I mean, these guys was ruthless. Now, you know, they'd walk up to you and blow your brains out.
Yeah.
But they didn't do drive-by shootings. You know, they just had a little more tack about them, a little more pride, I think, in how they did it now. You know, some of the stuff that I hear goes on nowadays is crazy, where they go and shoot your mama. If they can't catch you, they shoot your mama, and you know, it's just wild right now.
Yeah.
You know, with this society.
How much of that do you think is influenced by the music, like the music industry?
Oh man, it's crazy you brought that up. I never really watched Tupac.
Yeah.
But now, since all the stuff has been going on, you know,
With Keefy D.
Yeah. And the P. Diddy stuff,
Yeah.
I wanted to watch a Tupac documentary. You know, like what really happened.
Yeah.
And I'm in one of the documentaries too. You know.
Really?
Yeah. They pulled me over because I was in MCC when Tupac got killed.
Yeah.
My crime is from where Keefy D and them is from.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to ask, because he's from that era too, right? Like he's an older dude.
Yeah. And it was funny. The day I got ready to do this crime, I went over to my crimey's house, and Baby Lang was there at the house. So when Pac got killed, I called my crimey, and he was like, "You heard what happened?" He was like, "Remember dude that was here at the house?" And I was like, "Yeah." So it was like, wow.
Crazy.
Yes.
Keefy D, you're saying? Or
No. Baby Lang was there at the house.
okay, yeah. Wow.
So it was just for all that stuff to be so connected and so tied that it was, you know, like I knew before they start saying it on the news, like, and I'm in jail.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, I mean, that's the definition of tapped in right there, right?
It is. And so I'm watching this documentary the other night, and Pac says some profound shit to me. I mean, it like really fucked me up. Pac was like, why is all this shit happening to me? I'm just a rapper, an actor.
Yeah.
And the conversation ended there. And what I took from that is he was saying that this gangster stuff is starting to happen to him, but he's not really a gangster.
Right.
He was saying that I'm just a rapper and an actor. But what happens, what I found out is there's a thing that's called the law of attraction.
Mm-hmm.
And we bring to ourselves whatever it is that we most adore and most want. You know, it's like, say for instance, I want to be a professional tennis player.
Yeah.
Right? I want to be like Arthur Ashe. So I'm working, but then my cousin take me to a movie theater and I see Superfly. Now I'm like, fuck, this guy harder than Arthur Ashe.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He just kicked the whole police station's ass. And, you know, I'm 14 years old, maybe 15. I'm a kid, you know, still trying to find his way, you know, looking for somebody, you know, that can direct me. And then, bam, here he is right here on the screen, on the big screen. My man, my new man, who makes the whole police department bow down. You know, you ever saw Superfly?
Long time ago.
Yeah.
Took me a minute when you said that. I was like,
dope movie. Remember the scene when he's trying to get out the game and he's working for the cops, right? And
the dude with the big afro, right?
Yeah, he had the afro.
Okay, yeah.
And then the cops they gonna catch him and take all his money because they don't want him to get out the game. They want him to stay in the game. So he has his girl dress up like an old lady. He dumped the money in her bag, and he carrying the same bag out, and the cops stop him, and they do a little fighting, blah, 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 and they pull a gun on him. He say, go ahead, use it, motherfucking pig. And if you do, I took a contract out on you, your daughter, your wife, all y'all. If you touch one hair on my head, I'm going to kill all y'all. And when I saw that, it was the first time I ever saw a black man talk down to a white man, you know, and a cop at that. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So what I didn't understand is that in the back of my mind, I fell in love with this guy.
Right.
And not only did I fall in love with him, but I also fell in love with what gave him his power, which was cocaine. So 5 or 6 years later, I'm sitting at my partner's house, and he laid this shit out on the table. And like, this cocaine, you serious? You know, I'm a green tennis player. Never drunk a beer, never smoked a cigarette, never hit a joint, never saw weed, never saw cocaine. And now he's introducing me to cocaine, and then, boom, I tried it. And what I understood now, because I read, you know, I went to prison, I was illiterate.
Yeah.
Totally illiterate.
Right.
You know, but I didn't come out that way.
Yeah.
So all of y'all who think y'all gonna take advantage of me, keep going. We're gonna see. But doing my studies, I found out that there's a thing that's called the law of attraction.
Yep. So you learned about law of attraction in prison.
Yes.
Where you taught yourself how to read. You didn't know how to read before prison, and you were so motivated to get out of prison that you taught yourself how to read. That's amazing.
If I wouldn't know how to read, I probably would still be in prison right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we go into that, I want to just, when you had said that Superfly was that thing that planted the seed, that maybe shifted you away from tennis and towards the life that you went towards.
Well, I didn't quit playing tennis right then.
Right, but subconsciously it sent you in a different direction.
It wasn't the same. You know, I had love for Superfly.
Yeah.
You know?
So how much of that nowadays do you think is with these kids that are doing crazy things, right? I mean, compared when you said that back in the day, people at least had some sort of ethics. And now you said they'll run up and shoot your mom. Do you think that a lot of that is because of the music industry?
Oh, I totally blame it on the music industry.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. Because I understand how much that movie affected me. And see, I only saw that movie one time.
Right.
You talking about these kids listen to this music over and over and over and over, and then when that record stops, then you got this other guy who's saying almost the same thing, and then after he dies, another one comes back, and they recycling the same material.
Yep.
Just finding trickier ways to play with it, and different melodies and so forth to entice the mind.
Yeah. Tapping into the subconscious mind, and it's crazy. It's crazy. So you tried cocaine, and when you tried cocaine for the first time after not doing drugs, not drinking, really, you didn't drink at all before that?
No.
So when you tried it, did it make you realize, like, maybe you liked it so much, like, man, well, everybody else is gonna like this?
No, I didn't believe.
Okay.
I really, I mean, my boy who introduced me, I loved him.
Yeah.
Like a big brother.
Yeah.
This is my guy. So it was hard for me not to trust him and believe him. But what he was saying, he's telling me that I could be rich.
Yeah.
I'm like, me? The guy who went to school with tennis balls glued to the toe of his shoe so his foot wouldn't be on the ground, and all of his socks had the same hole in them because the shoe had a hole in that side, like.
They weren't the red Converses, were they?
No.
I love
that was
that
after
story.
the red Converse.
Yeah.
The red Converse was when I was in junior high school.
Tell that story real quick, because I want people to hear that.
Well, when I went to Bret Hart, everybody had Converse. That was like, and we were super poor.
Yeah.
My mom adopted 3 of my cousins, and she just didn't have, she was living above her means. She bought a house. When she first started buying a house, her and my auntie were gonna buy the house together. Mm-hmm. My auntie wound up dying, and my mom went on and finished the process. So she bought the house, but we were really poor. Like, we would have 3 pair of pants. Me and my brothers would get 3 pair of pants for the year, and we would have to swap pants. And like, okay, you wear these, but we all made sure we got different pairs.
Yeah.
So they look different, and the kids would recognize it. So I want a pair of Converse.
Yeah.
Like, Mom, I want some Converse, and they were like $11. She was like, boy, I ain't buying you no $11 shoes. Is you crazy? So she said, what you want for Christmas? I said, some Converse. So she finally bought me some Converse, and she come home and they were red.
In a Crip neighborhood.
So now I got to wear these to school, and everybody's calling me Red Shoes Dugan. Remember the Dugans that used to drive the car?
Yep.
So
Red Shoes
Dugan. So that became my tease name throughout the whole year. So, I would drag those shoes. I was trying to wear those. I tried to wear those shoes out.
Yeah.
I wanted those to wear out. But when I started playing tennis, in tennis, we drag our toe when we serve and do certain things. So I could wear a pair of tennis shoes out in a couple weeks.
Nice. That's
so
cool.
I would take tennis balls and glue them to the toe of the shoe and
to keep them going. Yeah.
Yeah, keep them going. I didn't have money to buy tennis shoes every week, but that's the red shoe Dugan story.
That's funny.
And it's in my book. So, anybody that haven't read my book, you want to know more about that story and some of the other adventures that I went through, feel free to go to my website. Don't go to Amazon and buy it.
Yeah.
FreewayRickyRoss.com.
We're going to link that in the description below. So if you're interested in buying his book, go buy that book. Support this man and listen to the story, too, because I'm going to go buy it, too.
And get some game. And I wrote that book. Most of that book I did while I was right downtown here.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was that was one of the saddest times of my life, to think that I may never be going home again. It's like pretty low.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you went in with a life sentence without the possibility of parole.
Yeah. That was here.
How did that? So how did that feel, right? And I mean, you went from being what, the biggest drug dealer in the country?
Some say that.
I mean, you were doing.
I was pretty big. $1 million every day. Not profit.
Yeah.
People get that twisted. My profit on $1 million was probably about 200,000.
20% margin is still really good. I mean, like, that's crazy. $200,000 a day.
Yeah. And then sometimes, I make $3 million in one day.
Yeah.
And sometimes my profit margin might be a little higher. It might be a guy that comes from St. Louis and he don't know what the prices are.
Yeah.
You stick it to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got this country boy.
That's funny.
Yeah. So it varied, but I make quite a bit of money.
So you try cocaine for the first time. What leads you to selling cocaine? Because this guy says you can be rich, and
that led me to selling cocaine.
Okay.
No. What he did is he gave me a piece to go out and try, and I did. And first, it took me a while to find somebody that knew if it was really cocaine, because I didn't even know if it was really cocaine.
Right.
Like, man, this ain't really no cocaine. How you get cocaine? Like you ain't never had no cocaine before.
Because cocaine wasn't as popular, right?
No, it wasn't. But it was really, really expensive.
Right.
We talking about a gram, maybe $350.
$350?
Yeah, for a gram.
In then?
Yeah. Coke was expensive back then.
Yeah. And what year was that?
79, 80.
Wow. I mean, your $11 shoes, that puts that into perspective, right?
Exactly.
So what led to
this was even later than $11 shoes. The $11 shoes was in like 72.
Right.
Yeah, so
Wow.
so it was a little after that.
Right. So you ended up becoming this massive drug kingpin. So how did that level up, right? Because
slowly.
Yeah.
Slowly.
Because you're
a lot of lessons.
Okay.
That first piece that he gave me, I ran into my boy Martin, and Martin wound up smoking that whole piece up. Like, it was so small though. It was like once he cooked it, it was like you're probably too young. You don't remember what a match head looks like, but they used to have matches, and they had on the tip of it, they had like a little striker.
I know it. Come on, I'm not that old. I'm 30. So I'm not that young.
I thought you just see cigarette lighters.
Yeah. No.
And the fire just come out.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, back then they had matches, and it was about the size of a match head.
Wow.
That's how small. And that was, I'm not sure, $50, $100.
So he was smoking it like freebase or crack?
He was cracking it. It was already it was when I started. It was already people doing crack.
Okay.
A little bit. They would. We didn't call it crack. We never called it crack. I mean, that was East Coast thing, I guess, or either police thing. I don't know. I don't know which one did it, but we never called. We called it Ready Rock.
Okay.
And the difference between the main people when I started, they would eat the basing, and that's what Richard Pryor was doing when he burned himself up. But there was still a few people that was already adding baking soda and water and heat, cooking it, and Martin was one of those guys.
Wow. Who
were already doing that. So he wound up sampling that whole piece.
Oh man, yeah. Well, I mean,
with no money.
Yeah. So your first goal was to make like $5,000, right?
Yeah, me and my partner together, we just wanted 5 together. Yeah. We was gonna split 5.
Yeah, and then you end up getting something like $100,000 in cash by what, 20 years old, 20 something?
Yeah, maybe 20, 21.
Yeah, and what is that compared to now? Like this day and age, at $100,000, then what do you think that'd be now? $2 million?
Oh no, well, houses in L.A. at that time was like 50,000. Yeah, to buy a house was about 50 grand.
Wow.
So you figure right now that same house, well, houses is down right now in L.A.
Yeah.
But a couple years ago, that house was probably worth like 700.
Yeah. Wow.
So it probably was 7 times what it is, or even more probably.
Yeah. That's amazing. So when you get to the point where you're making good money, was it just so like enticing? Like, why would you stop, right? You're making money.
Well, what happens with the dope game is the higher up you go, the easier it gets.
Right.
At first, when I first started, I'm standing out on the street.
Mm-hmm.
um, once I got up to ounces, I could move in the apartment.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Now people come to my apartment and I'm sitting there watching TV and they walk in the house and I got guys open the door and
Yeah.
you know, they got guns to watch, make sure nobody rob me. So the job has gotten easy.
Yeah.
And then when you start getting pounds, you get to the point where you got a guy sitting at the table and he's serving everybody and you got another guy answering the door and watching TV and then you just sitting there, you just eating, entertaining girls.
Yeah.
And so
Counting the money. Not even counting the money. Somebody else does that.
Well, I was still counting the money, but then after that, I got the girls to count the money because it got to the point to where I didn't have money machines at first.
Yeah.
So you count $1 million in a day, you count a lot of money. You get tired of counting money. You be like, man.
Did you ever weigh the money?
Nah. I heard about that, but I never tried it.
Yeah.
It would be days that I wouldn't sell drugs because I didn't want to. It was easier to sell the drugs than to count the money.
Wow.
You know, because you said kilos, they coming in a break. You know, okay. I just hand him 10 kilos and it's done. You know what I'm saying, in a bag. But now he comes with 200,000. You got to count it 25. And then some of these dudes will come with $1 bills. You know, like they might bring you 6,000 in $1 bills. So you got to count that, you know. So counting the money had gotten to be a headache.
Yeah. So you had a tire shop, you had a couple other businesses later on or around this time?
Tire shop, motel, beauty salon, phone store, you know, phones, alarms, body shop, junkyard, tennis shoe store.
And now you were running the money through the businesses? Is that why you started the businesses?
Nah,
or I just wonder like how
I just wanted to create jobs for people.
Yeah.
When I was coming up, I wanted a job.
Yeah.
I couldn't fill out the application, so I couldn't get a job from McDonald's.
Yeah, because you didn't know how to read or write.
Couldn't read or write, so they wasn't gonna say, oh well, you can't read or write, but you're a hard worker, you know. They didn't know that I would be the first one there every morning, you know. And even though I wasn't getting paid, I'd still wash the windows and sweep the sidewalks, and they didn't know I would have did all that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell them in the application. You know, I couldn't explain to them, and nobody would talk to you verbally, and so I couldn't get a shot. You know. So drugs was my first opportunity, you know, where I didn't have to fill out an application.
Yeah.
You know, oh, you got $120. Your buddy got $120. You guys are in the game.
Yeah. Right.
So that's how I got started.
Right. So what enticed you to keep going? I mean, obviously the money.
Different times, you know, different things at different times. You know, having goals. You know, one of my goals was I wanted to get 5 motels. I built the motel, and the motel was doing $5,000 a week.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, damn, if I had 5, I'd be making $25,000 a week. Not bad.
Yeah.
I might be able to quit.
And it's legit, you know.
And it's legit. I'm never going to go to jail.
How much did a motel cost you to get into?
My motel, I paid, I think, $50,000 for the lot, and it cost me about $290 to actually build it.
$290,000?
Yeah, $290,000.
Yeah. So it's a pretty big motel then, right?
Not really. 20. No. I think 22 units, 22 rooms. Wasn't that big, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, for a high school dropout, couldn't read or write. You know, a couple years before that, didn't have enough money to buy gas when it was 25 cents a gallon. You know, it wasn't doing too bad.
So what was it like doing these big drug deals, right? Because, I mean, were you still actively involved, like, all the way up?
Every deal.
Yeah.
Every deal I'm near, you know. I would always negotiate the deals. You know, I had a strategy how I would bring the price down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would always put the money in the middle of the floor, you know, piled it up like a coffee table in the middle of the floor, and then I would call the suppliers by, tell them to come by the house. And they would come in the house, and they would see the money sitting there on the floor, and they knew I wanted to buy. I was trying to score.
Yeah.
And I would start a little bidding war, you know. Like, oh, you want it?
You brought somebody else in?
I brought 3 of them. And they knew, you know, I tell them.
Doing a cocaine auction.
I tell them, oh, you know your guy coming by in a little while. That fucker, I ought to kill that motherfucker. How you get your phone number?
That's funny. So were you paranoid doing deals all the time, or did you feel fearless?
It gives you adrenaline, you know.
Yeah.
I can remember one night we were cooking, right? We cooking about 300 keys, and I started cooking like late at night because I knew the cops. The cops had patterns too, you know.
Yeah.
Like raiding patterns, you know. They like to catch you sleep and raid your place. So I said, okay, by 6 o'clock in the morning, we're gonna be done.
Yeah.
We do all our cooking from like 1, 2 in the morning to like 4. We done. We go put the dope up and you know, I used to hide my dope in cars.
Yeah.
You know, I was like hard to hit a moving target, so we would put the dope in cars and then we would go rent a room at a hotel.
Yeah.
And then park the car in a hotel and then just wait till the next day, you know, and then we go get it the next day.
So you wouldn't even stay at the hotel, or
no,
you
we
would?
wouldn't
Yeah.
stay there. You
Yeah.
know, we don't want no noise. One person would go in, check in, park the car, and act like they're going to get something to eat, and then we
Right.
go home.
Right.
Then we come the next morning, park down the street. He jump out, go in, get the car, pull it out, and that morning though I would have breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
And all the guys would be coming through, putting in their orders. Oh, I want this, I want that, I want that. And I'll be like, okay, go by the money spot, drop off the money, and then my girls would count the money. And I got money machines then, so they would count the money, and you know, 20, 30 minutes they would call me. Oh, he dropped off, blah 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 blah. He had 20,000 worth of ones. Oh, he was short 20,000 because I stopped taking ones.
Right.
Yeah, I stopped.
Too much to count, right?
Too many ones.
Yeah.
They started dumping their ones on me, you know. So I stopped taking them. I didn't stop taking them. I stopped counting them.
Right.
So if they bought me 20,000 in ones, they was 20,000 short.
Yeah. Charge a little tax on it.
Yeah. So by the end of the day, I would have my count. You know how many keys we needed for who, and so I would have my guys put them in duffel bags, and we were moving like a really, really influential neighborhood,
Yeah.
you know, where no way nobody's selling coke over there. And then we would just sit there in the van, and my guys would just throw the bags out the car as the guys pulled up.
So did you ever worry that like DEA or even like CIA was following you, or
They couldn't follow me. I would counter survey.
Yeah.
Know. Yeah, we ain't not letting nobody follow us.
yeah. But I mean, how do you like, did you recruit people that were former military or something that would?
No, my guys are all street guys from my neighborhood.
But how do you stay so far ahead of like, I mean, maybe it wasn't as advanced then, now with the technology we have, but I mean, informants.
Nobody had telephones. We were the only guys with telephones back then.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the technology wasn't there. And you know, these cops were lazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't want to do the work. I mean, they could have sit on us, you know, and really like just sit down but it would have took a lot of work. You know, you figure they had 2 hours to catch me cooking. Took us about 2 hours to cook.
Mm-hmm.
Then they had 15 minutes to catch us with the dope.
Right.
In 15 minutes, I'm done.
Yeah.
If you don't catch me exactly in them 15 minutes, you're not going to catch me that day.
Right. But what about with informants? Like if somebody inside, one of the girls or one of your partners.
They would have to get. I knew all my guys.
Yeah.
These guys I grew up with had
Right.
never been in trouble, you know, and maybe some of them may have been in trouble for gangbanging or something, but
Yeah.
you know, but they weren't to the point where they had no possibility that they were informants.
Right.
And at that time, nobody in L.A. informed.
Yeah.
I would say that nobody in L.A. was informants.
Yeah.
You know, they were sending informants from outside of the state. Later on, that was in like the late 80s.
Okay.
But they didn't even know we were having money for a long time.
Right.
You know, if you watch my documentary, one of the guys who was a part of the Freeway Rick Task Force,
Mm-hmm.
he talks about that they kept hearing that all this money was in South Central LA, but nobody believed it.
Right.
So
you weren't flashy, or were you?
me, no, of course
Yeah.
not. Why
Yeah.
would I be flashy? I don't want to put no flag up. I'm a dope dealer.
Yeah, right.
You know, like I can't believe how today these guys, on the internet and they advertising that they're drug dealers. No. I was totally the opposite. I didn't want people to look at me.
Right.
I would do things so that people wouldn't be attracted to me.
Okay.
I didn't want to attract attention. I wanted to be totally the opposite.
Yeah. That is crazy. I mean, so what is it like having those big amounts of cash? Like, what's the most amount of cash you've seen in one spot?
3.2 million.
Yeah. I mean, in cash, that's a big chunk.
Mine.
Yeah. How's that feel? Like, what's the feeling like with that?
In the 80s. It felt good. Like, just figure if your auntie, your cousin, or uncle, somebody called and say, hey, my car just got repoed. And you'd be like, go get it.
Yeah.
It feels good. Or somebody's in jail and you'd be like, bail them out. It just felt good to be able to assist your loved ones.
Right. So let's fast forward a little bit. So you go to prison, obviously, for, at first, you had a life sentence without the possibility of parole. So first off, what led up to you getting arrested, and what did it feel like when that happened?
Well, I'd already been to jail before I caught this case in San Diego. I caught a prior case out of Cincinnati.
Try to talk into the... Sorry.
I caught a prior case out of Cincinnati and in Texas.
Okay. So you were transporting or...
Yeah, sending drugs back and forth to Ohio and Texas.
Got it.
So when I got out, my informant had got busted here at the border. Somehow, I don't know all the details. They never told us all the details. But so when I get out, he had turned into an informant. So he was working with DEA to set me up.
Right.
They did this big documentary on me when I got out on day one, and it was on Monday night. Came on right after Monday Night Football, and everybody was. I know they got mad. DEA got mad, and so they paid this guy to set me up.
Right.
And when he was setting us up, just like the ride I just did today, I'm riding up the coast. But this is when I'm coming here. It's more sunset time, so you can see the ocean, the beautiful view.
So you got popped in San Diego?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
National City.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
National City, man. We started the deal in Chula Vista, and they had the dope in National City at a Montgomery Wars, I think it was.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was just to ride up here, and I was thinking I was looking at a life sentence.
Right.
But when I got out, it was kind of rough, and I was doing this old theater, and it was gonna be the West Coast Apollo, and I put a lot of money in it. I put like $900,000 down, and I've been paying the note on it for my whole 5-year bid, damn near $6,000 a month. Keeping it up, and I was about to lose it. I was like $30,000 behind, and on my payments, and my informant called me, and he was like, I don't know why you running around asking everybody for help. You ain't never asked nobody for help before. And what I found out he was doing is he was playing on my psychic.
Mm-hmm.
He was prepping me for this setup, and then he started offering me drugs. But on the way up here, I'd already thought about what I was facing.
Right.
And I had psyched myself out to the point to where I was saying, fuck it, I'd rather be in jail than out here broke.
Law of attraction.
Exactly.
So you had already been arrested at this point? Okay.
I've been in jail before.
Okay, in other states, though.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Sorry, I just want to make sure.
That's cool.
Cool.
Make it clear.
Yeah. So you come down here. Did you feel like it was going to happen? Was there any kind of like?
Nah, it was normal. I mean, he knew how to run a dope by.
Yeah.
Me and him did enough.
And was this guy a longtime friend of yours, or?
Yeah, he's my old supplier, Danilo Blandon.
Okay, so Blandon's the one that set you up.
Yeah,
got
Blandon
it.
the one set me up.
Okay. And Blandone was your connect in Miami.
Miami, L.A.,
But he was from
Cincinnati.
Was he Nicaraguan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So you're coming down here, feels like a normal deal, then what?
Well, they wouldn't do the deal that night, because they didn't want to do it at night. They knew I was going to run, I guess. They knew my MO. I ran, too. So they stalled us off that night, and the next morning they called. We got up. We took them the money. We handed them the money. They took us to where the drugs were supposed to have been at in the car. He gave me the keys. I threw the keys to Mike. Mike jumped in the car, took off. I jumped in Mike's truck, took off, and next thing I know, a plane car tried to block me off. I swerved and went around it. And then when I looked up, the intersection was blocked. The cops, black and whites, had the intersection blocked off, and I knew it was a setup.
Yeah. How'd that feel? Like knowing that somebody... yeah.
Everything started flashing in my head. My kids, who would ask me, don't leave no more. They start flashing in my head that now I was going to leave them forever. I probably would never see them again. This was 100 kilos.
Right.
Helicopter popped up.
Yeah.
So I knew it was going to be hard to get away.
Yeah.
It was just a setup, man. And then while I'm running, I see Danilo Blandone laughing at me. And I'm feeling like, dang, I thought this dude was my friend.
Right.
Like all the stuff we done together, this is how it ended up.
And it sounds like you grew up in a very loyal neighborhood, right? People don't rat on each other. People are loyal to each other.
Back then, yeah, more so than now.
Yeah, but I mean, like, so for somebody who grew up, and I think loyalty is one of my favorite features of a person. When I have a friend who's loyal to me, I am almost stupidly loyal like a dog to them. I just feel like that's the right thing to do. So when somebody turns on you, especially, it's not just like over a little bit of money. This is your life you're talking about. It's got to feel...
Yeah. And I was still naive. Even when I was sitting in prison, I was like, oh, he ain't going to show up to court.
Yeah.
He was just trying to get out of jail. And then even Gary didn't think it was going to show up. Gary Webb, who broke the story. Gary's like, he ain't showing up to court. And I was like, Gary, if he don't show up to court, I walk.
Yeah.
Gary was like, oh, no, he got too much luggage. They don't want him to talk. And,
who's they?
He was saying that the government didn't want him to talk.
Yeah.
And then when I walked out, they never made me a deal either. We tried to plead guilty to 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, I'll take 20.
Yeah, well, it's federal stuff, right? So they they convict.
We already know they're gonna convict.
Yeah.
And with my case, my jury instructions was entrapment. Which is you done told LA Times you love selling drugs, and now you're gonna say you entrapped.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck. Kind of like what Keefy D got himself into.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Keefy D told everybody what he did without telling them, right? I mean, you went on Vlad. He also went on Vlad and told on himself.
Yeah. I went to LA Times though.
Yeah.
This is before Vlad.
Right. That's funny. Oh, so you said, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I said to the LA Times when I got out the first time. LA Times interviewed me.
Yeah.
And that's what, LA Times went against Gary's story.
Yeah.
In this article, LA Times said that I was the McDonald's or the Walmart of crack.
Yeah.
And
well, at some point you were doing more sales than Walmart was, right?
That's what my lawyer said. Yeah, my lawyer said that. So when Gary broke the story, LA Times went against him, and they were saying, "Oh, Rick wasn't that big of a deal," whatever.
So Gary Webb was an investigative journalist. Can you talk about your friendship and relationship with Gary Webb?
Yeah, first time I met Gary was right down the street here in San Diego. He came. I spoke to him on the phone, and he asked me if I would be willing to assist in his investigation, and my lawyer was a little skeptical. You know how lawyers are. Oh,
yeah.
We don't know about that. And I was like, shit, I ain't got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
They giving me a life sentence.
Right.
I had already came to the realization that I was going to get a life sentence.
Yeah.
Law of attraction. Again.
Yeah.
So I had no problem with talking to Gary. I didn't feel I had anything to lose, and I knew that the lawyers in the case were all pushing for me to get on the witness stand and lie for Mike.
Yeah.
To let Mike go. Which was probably something I did wrong, because when they pulled the jury said one of the things that they didn't like the most about me is that I didn't tell Mike I was taking him to a dope deal.
Right.
And Mike is the guy that started me selling dope.
Right. Crazy.
Yeah, but I had a loyalty to Mike still.
Yep.
He was still the guy who, all the stuff that I had experienced in life, even though I was here at the end of this rainbow,
Yeah.
he was still the guy who had exposed me to all the wonderful things that I had experienced in my life. Being able to build motels and drive Benzes and go on ski trips and have speedboats and have multiple girlfriends at the same time, and have 4 kids that's born in the same year. All that came because of what he introduced me to.
Right.
Had he not introduced me to that, I don't feel that I would have enjoyed that aspect of my life.
Now, you had all these things that everybody wants, right? Did those things make you happy? The toys, the money, the houses, the freedom.
I've always been happy, even when I was poor.
Did it get magnified when money came, right? Like they say, if you're an asshole when you're poor, you're going to be an asshole when you're rich.
I think money is more of a tool to, and don't get it wrong, I understand that here in America, with no money, you don't eat.
Right.
You don't have a roof to sleep in if you don't have no money. You
Right.
sleep on the street.
Yeah.
So I get that point, but I'm saying after you have those essential things, then what do you do with the money?
Right.
Well, I believe that I was supposed to help other people accomplish their dreams, just like I wish that somebody would have came along and helped me accomplish my dreams.
Right.
So my goal was more so to create jobs for people who didn't have the ability to fill out an application.
Yeah.
But maybe was a hard worker.
Right.
Like myself.
Yeah.
And whenever I recruited drug dealers, those are the kind of drug dealers that I look for.
Right. People who are smart, who are looking for guidance too, right?
Yes. And I learned, I started teaching, my early crew that I started, I didn't really teach them about not using.
Right.
But I learned later on, one of the first steps is to teach them not to use the drug.
Right. Yeah. I mean, one of the 10 crack commandments, right?
Yeah.
Never get high on your own supply.
I did hear that before.
Yeah. So, so from going from the biggest drug dealer in the country, I mean, making millions, and I mean, it may have felt like it was endless, right? To it ending and you going with a life before your eyes, right? Like you have life in prison without the possibility of parole. You're looking back at your kids. You're looking back at your life. Instant regret, or what did it feel like?
I guess Jesse could describe me better than I could describe myself. You know, because he was looking from the outside, and he said that I felt pitiful. And in the beginning.
Yeah.
In the beginning, and I probably did have some sorrow for myself, and feeling that. Because I felt the government fucked me over from the beginning without the CIA stuff, before even the CIA stuff even took place. Cause what you got to look at is that when I came home from prison, I had no intention on selling drugs.
Right.
My intention was Suge Knight, Bill Death Row. I can do the same thing.
Yeah.
I had the theater that was going to be the West Coast Apollo, and the theater held like 4,500 people. So my mind was, this is going to be the stage that every rapper that comes to LA going to get on this stage.
Right.
And that was my goal. and drugs was not in the equation. You know, I was like, oh no, I ain't messing with no drugs. But I do understand that I had never totally ruled out drugs.
Right.
You know, it was still like, oh, if my son needed surgery,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go get that money.
Well, it's the thing, right? I mean, this is your foundation.
It was my crutch.
Yeah.
If things weren't going right, I'd go sell some drugs.
Right.
Make it a little better. So for them to come and start dangling drugs in my face, I felt was a violation of my parole.
When you say them, who?
The government.
Right.
DEA.
CIA?
Well, it could have been the CIA. DEA was the representative.
Yeah. Right.
DEA, immigration.
Yep.
They were the representative of what was taking place to me.
Right.
You know, they were the ones who told Danilo Blandon, go get him. And I just felt that when a person gets out of prison and he's been gone for a while, he's vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know, easily persuaded because you don't have no money. You know, things not like it was. You've been gone.
Yep.
Girlfriends left you, friends. So you trying to put your life back on track.
Mm-hmm.
For somebody to come and deliberately try to take you off track, I think should be a violation.
Right.
They should be encouraging you to go straight. And I was going straight, but they kept dingling that thing that they know, twick my fancy, like.
Well, CIA agents and I mean the government, but specifically CIA agents are taught and trained to look for vulnerabilities in the people they want to manipulate.
Absolutely.
Do you think that's what happened to you? I mean, do you think Blandon was...
They knew my profile.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had my profile. I mean, you got the guy that I dealt with every day.
Yeah.
You got him. So he can give you information where you can come up with the profile.
Right.
So they knew what, was going to... Because they start off, we give them to you for 17. Nope. We give them to you for 15. Nope. We give them to you for 12. Nope. We give it to you for 11. Nope.
Kilos?
Yeah, we give them to you for 9.5. What? 9.5?
At some point, did it seem too good to be true or no?
Not for him. We did it before.
Yeah.
And that's what the judge went by to not give me sentence entrapment, because technically it was sentencing entrapment as well, because my crime, he only had $180,000 and they was giving us $1 million worth of dope. So
where's the money?
So really the government and agents manipulate sentences by giving credit.
Right.
He can't buy with 2 kilos, but we're going to give him 10 on credit.
Right.
So now you look at more time.
So do you think that the CIA is responsible for the crack, everything that happened with crack cocaine?
Wow. Good question.
Well, I mean, with the whole Iran-Contra thing, Barry Seal, all that stuff.
Yeah, still, I mean, I don't know. They say that they knew that their agents were selling drugs, but, I mean, are they responsible? I'm not the guy to answer that question. I mean, I couldn't, I couldn't say. Gary Webb thought they were,
Well, and Gary Webb ended up supposedly committing suicide in 2004, right? 2004?
Yeah. Shot himself twice.
Yeah. So
in the head.
How do you do that, right? I mean, it can be. I'm not saying it's impossible.
People ask me that all the time, and my answer is always the same. I didn't see the autopsy. I don't have any evidence.
Yeah.
So when I don't have evidence, it's hard for me to speak on it.
Of course.
It would only be a theory. They had a coroner that said it was possible, for a guy to shoot himself in the head twice. But I guess the jury's gonna be out for that, on that issue. Gary's wife said she found suicide notes, where he thought about doing suicide. So I just don't know. I never thought. Last time I talked to Gary, he didn't sound suicidal.
Yep.
Um, he was talking about pushing on that he had new evidence, and you know, um, there was different areas that he thought he was going to go with the story. He thought that he could go even further. So, um, it's a good question, man. I mean, the world's been wrestling with that since it happened.
Yeah.
What happened to Gary Webb?
Well, I mean, you come out with a big story that might compromise the CIA. It's pretty easy for them to just make somebody, disappear.
I don't know if I don't know if Americans have the backbone, to compromise the CIA or to compromise the government, to put the government in check, because sometimes we it gets out of control, and you have to wind it back in, and I just don't know if we've gotten there. I mean, we come a long ways,
Yeah.
Now, I remember the day I got off parole, my boy took me to a weed conference in San Bernardino, and I was like, what the fuck? They got, jars of weed sitting on the table, and the police was walking by, and
Yeah.
I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're getting more sensible, now drug dealers don't get life sentences for selling drugs,
Yeah.
that's when it's murder involved.
Right.
So I mean, we made some improvements, but I don't think that we have. We're nowhere near the point we need to be.
Yeah. So, how did you teach yourself how to read in prison? I mean, your motivation was to get out and see your family again, right?
Yes.
So, what led you? I mean, obviously, your motivation is now, well, how do I get out? Well, I got to read.
Law of attraction.
Yeah.
I thought my way in. I'm gonna think my way out. my cellie made me some cue cards, and I started with the cue cards, and he taught me how to sign my letters out. And next thing you know, I was reading a newspaper.
Wow.
And then law books, and then I fell in love with reading. I became an advocate reader. Once I understood how valuable reading was, that reading was almost a cheat code.
Yeah.
You can read a book in 3 or 4 days that it took somebody 30 years to live.
Yeah.
So you get all that experience in 3 or 4 days, and I was like, wow, this is like cheating.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have gave me this. So I became an advocate reader. I wanted to cheat. I didn't mind cheating. I just want to win.
Yeah. Yeah. So how long did it take you to get, to enough to be able to read law books? Because law books aren't necessarily kindergarten style.
It wasn't
reading.
long. I'm talking about months, maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, one of the things I found out about reading is it's probably easier for an adult to learn how to read than a kid.
Yeah.
Because an adult already has a vocabulary.
Yep.
And once you get the word, like I could read a sentence and I might not know a word in there, but I could understand the meaning of that word after I read the sentence. So that would be something that would be hard for a kid to do. And my comprehension level was really good.
Yeah.
The last test I took, my comprehension level was on a college level.
Mm-hmm.
So I really understood what I read.
Right.
Right. And I just stayed on it. I started reading like I sold dope, all day, every day. That was my favorite pastime.
Right.
I stopped playing chess, stopped watching TV at all. All I would do is go to the library and stay in my room and read. And what I found out that the more you read, the better you get at it.
Mm-hmm.
Like tennis.
Yeah. Well, like how Superfly made you feel like that black man had spoken to the police in a spoken down to them. That was the first time you saw that. Was getting out of prison your way of that same feeling of feeling like you're giving it to the system?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's something you mentioned that, right? One day we were in court and they had a special hearing because I was in there writing my book.
Yeah.
And so, the cops in the jail in MDC would, whatever you're doing, they would always report it to the government. And So they reported, oh, he's over there writing a book. So we go to court, and the guy wants to put the Son of Sound law on me. Your Honor, Mr. Ross is over there. He's trying to get rich again, and he's over there writing a book at MCC. So I saw how it hurt them for me to become successful.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I got it now. I'm finna read every book I can get my hand on. I'm going to get as smart as I can because this is going to hurt him.
Yeah.
Like right now, I know that LJ O'Neal is somewhere pouting about the life that I'm living right now.
Yeah.
He cannot stand it.
Right.
He called me liars in court. He tried to tell the judge that I made all this up.
Right.
I talked Gary Webb into doing this story, and Gary's like, how could he do these papers? You know, like, how could he do that?
Right.
You know, you talking about a guy couldn't read. You know, like, and now he done created all these papers in what is it called? You know where they keep all the papers when they have to get them unsealed and all that stuff. You know.
Yeah.
So Gary hit him hard with that one. Like,
right.
How could he create this story?
Yeah.
So and they felt better discrediting me than discrediting Gary. You know, right. Gary was a little harder to discredit.
Well, you're already like, well, you know, you're in jail.
I'm in jail. I'm a convict. I'm a lying convict. Like, because you sold drugs, you're also a liar. Yeah. Like, you can be a drug dealer without being a liar.
Right.
You know, that don't mean because you sold drugs, you're a liar. You know. Like,
yeah.
Come on, man.
So what was it that what made you go from having that life sentence without the possibility of parole to being able to walk after 20 years?
There was a case that I found, and it says that you cannot become a career criminal in one day. You know, say for instance, I never saw Breaking Bad, but I heard about it, right?
Yeah.
And they said this guy's son needed a surgery or something, and he knew what a dope track was, and he goes out. So, say for instance, in L.A., we had dope tracks that would make $100,000 one day. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, you could literally go out there, and if you could dominate the sales, you could make the whole $100,000, right? Right. But in order to make $100,000, you got to make a lot of different sales to a lot of different people. Right. Well, you know, each one of those are different sales, right? So technically, the way they were trying to do the law, you could have been a career criminal 50 times over because you sold to 50 people. Right. So you sold 50 different sales. Those are 50 different cases technically. Yep. Usually what they do is they run all those sales together. And
they run the weight, right? Combined weight or?
Yeah, in the feds they do.
Yeah.
In the feds they do. So when I looked at it, I was like, wow. The important part of this is not how many sales he made, but when did he get arrested and how many times he got arrested. Right. So say for instance, if you're out there and you're making all those sales and the cops never arrest you, and then they come the next day and they arrest you, and they say, oh, we saw you sell to 50 different people, blah, 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 you got marked money and the whole 9 yards. Take you to jail just one time. Right. In order for it to be a second time, you have to, until they let you out of jail, you have to go back out there and do it again. Right. And if you sold 50 times or 100 times again, it's still just another time. Right. It's 2. In my case, my one day went for 8 years. Right. It wasn't one day, it was 8-year run. But I had never been arrested.
So they only had you for the one deal?
They only had me for the one deal. Ah. But they said, since I did it in different states, and I had cases in different states, that made it different because I was crossing state line. But I was like, we talking about the feds. How can it be, you know? So that's basically how I want. It's called a continuous criminal spree. You know, like you're having a spree where you're never.
Yeah, you're binging.
Yeah, you never been brought to your senses. You know, it's like, you know, a guy who's smoking and he just keeps smoking, and he never quit. Yeah. Yeah. So. That's how I beat the case.
So you get out of prison after 20 years, 2009?
Yeah, 2009.
How did that feel? Like the day you get out, And how long before you got out did you know you were getting out?
About 9 years.
Okay, wow. So 2000. So how did it feel when you got out?
Like Superman.
Yeah.
Like that.
Like Superfly.
Yeah, bigger than Superfly. I'd already did Superfly.
Yeah.
I passed Superfly.
Yeah.
I passed him. Superfly was playing with like 3 kilos or 3 pounds or something.
Yeah.
I was having hundreds of kilos.
Right.
So I passed Superfly already. And Scarface, my other hero. I like Scarface too.
Yeah.
But I had passed both of those. So now my goal was to pass my new heroes.
Mm-hmm.
The new guys that I mapped out to be my targets,
Like who?
Don King was one.
Escobar? Was Escobar dead?
No, he wasn't dead then. Yeah, he was dead when I got out. No,
when you got out, but
I didn't want to go back into cocaine. I'd already.
No, I mean, but when you were in it, did you want to get to the? I mean,
I
you
didn't.
were
I didn't
almost
know
there.
I didn't know who Escobar was when I was when I was in the streets.
Wow. He probably knew who you were.
Probably did.
It's crazy to think about.
But I set new goals. My first book I ever read was Malcolm X.
Really?
And when I read that book, I saw myself. I mean, we had so many things that were similar. He couldn't read till he went to prison. He learned how to read in prison.
Yep.
And in his book, one of the things that he said is, if they put you in prison, learn how to read and write. And I took that to heart, and then I saw like, oh, you can be bigger than Malcolm.
Right.
And the other guy that Les Brown and Louis Farrakhan.
Yeah.
Those are the guys that I said I would like to be like these guys.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people don't like Farrakhan, but he told me some things from watching those videotapes that I watch that really helped me out a lot. He told me to study them.
Mm-hmm.
One day I'm in there. I didn't want to go watch Farrakhan. I never heard of Farrakhan.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go watch him. I didn't want no Christian stuff. I didn't want none of that. That God stuff.
Yeah.
Keep that to yourself.
But Les Brown?
I started doing less a little later.
Okay.
Even later than them.
Yeah.
I just wanted to play basketball and lift weights.
Yeah.
This is my first bit. The first time I did my bit, I just want to play basketball and lift weights.
Yeah.
I want to come out swole. I'm getting this rap game. I found the Alcoholics while I was in prison.
Uh-huh.
The group, the Alcoholics, you ever heard of them?
Like Alcoholics Anonymous?
No, it's a group, a rap group. That was big.
No, I don't know.
It was a big rap group. Yeah, my understanding is that they the ones who found Wu-Tang.
Okay.
Somebody from Wu-Tang gave them a tape while they was on tour, and they brought it back to Steve Riskins, and that's how Wu-Tang got signed.
Wow.
But they were pretty big. They
Right.
were the first gold artists on Loud Records.
Okay.
So I found them from prison.
Right.
And really was the reason they got signed with Loud, because I hooked them up with Fabian.
Right.
Who Fabian was the vice president of Loud Music.
Wow.
And Fabian was going to quit Loud and come and run Freeway Records. Because like I said, I was at MDC when they started Death Row.
Right.
So I saw what they did, and I said, I can do the same thing.
Yeah. It's funny. Now Suge's down in at Donovan.
Man, Suge. I like Suge, too.
Really?
Yeah, Suge tried to help me when I got out.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard that, actually.
No, he did. Suge reached his hand out. I didn't receive it the way I should have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me say that there. I slipped on that. Had I...
Yeah, but maybe you would have been wrapped up on something else,
No, I would have probably steered him away.
Yeah,
I probably
really
kept him on the... Yeah, sometimes you need that voice of reason.
Yeah.
When you got... I mean, I know he wanted to be with the gangsters and stuff, but he still had a lot of respect for my wisdom.
Right.
So I don't know. Anyway, but I feel that had I stayed closer to Suge, I would have had a definitely an impact on his life.
Right.
And it probably would have been different than what it wound up turning out to be.
Right.
But what was we saying? I lost my train of thought.
It's all right.
We was talking about how I felt, right?
Yeah. So when you got out, right? You said you feel like Superman.
Yeah, I read 300 books.
Yeah.
Study Sam Walton. Study Nike. Bill Gates. The guys who found Google.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I done read articles of. I knew when Facebook only had 20-some thousand followers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never saw a computer, but I read the articles in the newspapers. You know, I used to read the LA Times, Wall Street Journal. I read those every day.
Yeah.
USAA. So I knew what was going on, even though I didn't know what was going on. You know, I had an idea. So when I got out, I was armed with all of this knowledge.
Yeah.
I understood how I made $1 million a day selling cocaine.
Right.
Like, I get it. I know. First, it was luck.
Yep.
When I did it, it was luck. It was just pure tennis luck. You know, keep hitting the backhand. You hitting it wrong. Do it over again. Correct it. That's what I use in the dope game.
Yep.
You know, you see something wrong. Oh, that guy there, he did that right. Do it just like that.
Trial and error.
Yes. When I got out of prison, I understood what I needed to do.
Right.
To accomplish whatever goal I wanted to accomplish. And I felt that there was no cap on what I could do. Mm-hmm. And I still feel like that.
There's no cap. I mean, and the cool thing is, you've been an entrepreneur this whole time.
Oh, yeah, I've been an entrepreneur since I was knee-high to a grasshopper.
Yeah.
You know, I used to go and collect my neighbors' bottles. When the liquor stores, you pay 5 cents a bottle, and I would collect their bottles and then take them to the store and come back and split the money with them. So I already understood entrepreneurship. I understood organizing. But then, you know, once I read Think and Grow Rich, and it taught me about the mastermind group. Now I know about putting a group of people together whose specific job is to help you accomplish your goals.
Yeah. So let's talk about the mastermind, because law of attraction and Think and Grow Rich is very important. It's why I have my vision board right there. And I'm constantly having to take things down and put new things back up on there because they keep happening. You know, this office, an office just like this, was on my vision board for a long time, and it happened.
Wow.
You know, just like the music plants seeds in your subconscious mind, I've noticed that, you know, a vision board or visualization plants those same kind
thing
of
I was
seeds.
just telling you about Tupac.
Yeah, right. He manifested
his wanting to play the role so well turned into his real life.
Yeah.
You know, the same thing with me. Me wanting to be Superfly so bad, I became Superfly.
Yeah.
I became him in real life. So, you know, Mama always say, be careful what you ask for because you might get it.
Yeah. Do you believe that anything that you can have in your mind, you can hold in your hand?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're willing to, because it's different between, you know, some people just want something, and then some people like really want it. Like, I'll stake my life on this.
Yep.
You know, like when I sold drug, I was willing to die.
Yeah.
Or kill.
Yep.
You know, I put on a bulletproof vest.
Yeah.
I wake up some morning, I put my vest on, my pistol, and be like, man, if it go down today, it go down.
Yeah.
You know, this is how it is.
Right.
You know, somebody run up trying to take my shit, I'm gonna kill them.
Yeah.
If the cops come up wrong, they gonna get it too.
Yeah.
If I go to prison today, that's part of the game.
Yeah.
And what I understood is I was so cold, and not only did I put myself on the line, but I started putting my other family members on the line as well, because, and my friends who I recruited to come into this lifestyle that was dangerous for everybody.
Yeah.
And I brought people in that I genuinely love. You know, even my little sister, she was about 17 years old, and she kept getting in trouble out here. And, you know, I told my mom, put her on the plane, send her down here to me.
Right.
In Cincinnati. And then she came down there and started selling dope with me.
Yeah.
You know, she didn't get in trouble no more, but it still put her in the line of that fire that, you know, that Tupac put himself in.
Yeah. Right. Manifested the downfall. Now, when you look back, do you regret it?
No regrets. I used to, people used to ask me that all the time, and I didn't really know what to say. And I did an interview with this girl out of Chicago, out of the Chicago Tribune, I think it was.
Yeah.
And young girl too. And the title of her story was "No Regrets, Only Lessons."
Mm-hmm.
And I learned from my life. I benefited from it. Even jail. I benefited from jail. No way I could accomplish the things that I accomplished in jail if I would have been on the street.
Right.
Nobody would have got me to sit down and read Think and Grow Rich and The Richest Man in Babylon and As a Man Think and Millionaire Next Door and Who Moved My Cheese and From Good to Great. They couldn't have did it.
Right.
It wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have read the Wall Street Journal every day. I wouldn't have read so when I look back at my life, and if you have regrets, that means that you don't really like who you are today.
Yeah.
So if you like who you are today, then you can't have regrets because everything that you've done got you to the point to where you're sitting at right now.
Right. It's funny that you say that because so I'm 7 years sober, right? I struggled with alcohol. I got myself in a lot of shit before I got sober. And I wanted to be, I manifested a reality that I thought I wanted, and I didn't. But when people ask me about getting sober, and they're like, man, you must really regret it. It's like, well, I'm here, and I'm living the life that I always wanted to, and I wouldn't be here without getting sober and without dealing with all the shit that I dealt with, that I brought on myself.
Right.
So no, I think we share that. I don't regret any of it.
No, you can't, because you won't. If you regret it, then you don't like who you are today.
Yeah, I feel bad for some of it. There's some things that I wish I didn't make other people feel a certain way, but sometimes I think that this life is like a simulation, and we're all here to teach each other's lessons. And when somebody does you wrong, it's for a reason. And I think it all balances out at the end.
Well, I look at it like we're all in a dream.
Yeah.
And this is my dream.
Yeah.
And you have your dreams. He has his dreams. And whatever he dreams, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Whatever role I play in his dream, that's the role I was supposed to play. And
right.
whatever role he plays in mine, that was the role that he was supposed to play. Now, how I deal with his role is a whole nother story.
Right.
So that's kind of how I look at the whole scenario.
Yeah. So let's talk about law of attraction for a little bit. We kind of skimmed the surface, but how would you, if you were to tell your 15-year-old self about law of attraction, what would you say? How would you describe it? How would you harness it?
Dream big. That's all you got to do is dream big. One of the things that really saddens me right now is black people inability to dream, inability to see themselves in a different light, other than this gangster mentality that, and I helped create it,
Right.
I helped create a lot of this stuff that we're doing right now. But we have to get the ability back to be able to dream and see ourselves other than a Crip, a Blood, a whore, a dope dealer, a rapper. It's more important than all of those. This life that we're living is just so beautiful, and there's so many things to offer that you can't limit yourself to just being pegged in one hole.
Right.
Or two.
Well, I love that you said dream bigger, because the podcast is called Thinking Bigger. And that's the whole concept of it. Is I think that we put ourselves in these boxes, and it has to do with our programming, right? Like
absolutely.
Would you say that you were a product of your environment?
Oh, absolutely.
I think everybody is, but I think we can all change that. And it's funny because you started to get a different perspective on life when you started reading, right? Like
Oh, for sure.
Was that really the thing that shifted?
Well, first, tennis gave me a different perspective. I got to see things because, I wondered, why my brothers don't have the same drive I got.
Mm-hmm.
We grew up in the same house. We ate the same food. But they didn't have the same perspective of life that I did. When I was a kid, I got to go to Beverly Hills, and see people with tennis courts in their backyard.
Right.
I got to go to country clubs that they didn't allow blacks to come in at all.
Yep.
Was no black members. So the only way you come there is if you come there for a tournament or something, was going on like that. So I got to see those things at a young age. I had people bring me home in a Rolls Royce convertible in '74.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So it gave me a different perspective right there. And then reading took me to a whole nother perspective where I found out that, Jeff Bezos started in a garage, in his mom's and dad's garage selling books, and blossomed into being Amazon. And Zuckerberg stole these guys' idea, and turned it into Facebook. And Friendster saw that, Friendster was first. MySpace saw that Friendster couldn't figure out how to build a server big enough to keep, I forgot her name, but she was the first person on Friendster, and she also was the first person on MySpace.
Really?
Yes. And they figured out how to keep the servers up, and they brought her to MySpace, and then she blew MySpace up.
Yeah.
And so reading gave me that.
Right.
Reading gave me that knowledge. How Nike, and some of the stories might not be totally accurate, but reading his book, they talk about how he didn't set down to start Nike. He got lucky and went over to China and saw some tennis shoes that looked like Adidas and brought them back, and next thing you know, he's selling tennis shoes out the trunk of his car, and next thing you know, Nike, because he had to wear a whip to say, oh, Adidas them don't believe in paying athletes to wear their shoes.
Yep.
They thought it was unethical.
Right.
To pay an athlete, and he didn't think so, so he put him under contract. So when you start to see these type of things, and they give you ideas, like, oh, that's how it was, So, and then I saw all of the opportunities that I had that I passed up, like one day I'm sitting in my house and I'm smoking a joint, and my boy called me and he was like, hey, Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson want you to come to the studio.
Wow.
And I'm like, tell them to come over here.
Did they?
No.
Damn.
No. And then I'm sitting there with Otis Smith, and Otis Smith is the guy who found Anita Baker. Yeah. So I'm seeing I had all these opportunities, and I didn't know. When I go meet Dr. Dre, when I get out of jail, one time I went to an apartment, and DJ Pooh take me over to this apartment, and Dre said he was at that apartment, So I'm seeing that I had all these opportunities, but I didn't capitalize on them.
Right.
Things that would have kept me out of the dope game, which what I was looking for.
Right.
That's why I built the motel. That's why I was building houses.
Yeah.
To keep myself out of the dope game. But I learned from these books that you have to be even more open-minded than just what everybody else tell you should be doing. People told me, oh, you should do real estate.
Yeah.
So that's why I did real estate. My girl wanted a beauty salon, so that's why I got a beauty salon.
Yeah.
I like tires and wheels on cars, so I bought a tire and wheel shop. That kind of stuff. You gotta kind of be innovating your mind. Filling your mind, letting your mind go out into the universe and meeting other people and getting their ideas.
Right.
Know?
And the mastermind principle, which you said you learned from Think and Grow Rich, has that made an impact on your life?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
How so?
I got about 19,000 members in my mastermind group right now.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I got a pretty big mastermind group.
Nice. Well, where can people learn more about the mastermind?
I would say, well, I got a millionaire club. I started a millionaires club where my goal is to take all of these people that join my millionaire club, and I'm going to make them millionaires.
Right.
It's been a little tough to do. I haven't really given them the time that I plan on giving them. Because first I had to get myself planted. Even since I've been out of jail, TMZ hit me up a couple days ago. I was coming from France about Tory Lane.
Yeah.
When I first got out, Tory Lane might have been like 17 years old, and I was going to all of these little shows, and Tory Lane was there. And he was like, "Man, you ought to work with me, Rick." Little bitty kid, and I'm like, "Kid, get out of here."
Yeah.
But at that time, I wasn't settled to where I could deal with an artist, and I didn't know if he was talented. I didn't have that. I didn't have that to know what I know now about, because I'm getting ready to drop my first artist. I got to deal with Universal Music Group now, so I'm going to drop an artist Friday. Friday we drop.
Really?
Yeah. Juice the Mac. It dropped Friday.
Okay.
We're going to Detroit. We're going to be dropping there. It's going to be a pretty big party. And so it just taught me to keep an open mind, and surround yourself with people that can help your mind expand. If you get around people and you can't do that, which is what most of your friends are gonna say. If they don't know where they going, they're gonna talk you out of trying to go in anywhere. Like,
right.
Just stay with us.
Yeah.
So Mastermind Group has been wonderful for me. So many of those principles in those books, like saving 10% of everything you earn, when I looked at it in the dope game, I put almost all my money back. I lived off of the ones.
Right.
I got so many $1 bills I couldn't spend them.
Yeah.
So when you look at those type of principles, you'd be like, wow, just what is it that I can't do? All I have to do was know what I want to do.
Right.
And a lot of times people don't know what they want to do. I mean, you ask most people, what is it you want to do? And they won't. They can't tell you.
Yeah. Right. And they haven't had the time to think about it, which is so weird because we're living in this life of the rat race on a hamster wheel where we're just going.
Yeah.
But going where?
Nowhere.
Yeah.
And you can live out here. I ain't had a job since I've been out of prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, like my judge said, I live off the fat of the land. That's what she told me when I went to court. Oh, you live off the fat of the land. You've been out here living off the fat of the land. I'm still living off the fat of the land. And life has been good for me. I'm excited. I pulled my director and my producer back together yesterday. We had a little thing about the movie. We were supposed to start pre-production this summer, and I pulled that back together. My two babies are playing great tennis. My daughter's she's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she's wrestling with. She's only 11.
Really?
Yeah, and she's wrestling with. I don't want to be good. I don't want to be good in tennis. That's what Daddy wants me to do. You know? So, but to see her hit a tennis ball, like, lets me know. Richard Williams did it. Everybody laughed at him. Because, I knew Venus and Serena when they was coming up, too. You know what I mean? When they first started.
Yeah.
And their dad used to say that they were going to be number 1 and 2 in the world.
Yeah.
And
man, that Nike commercial with them and their dad, do you know which one I'm talking about?
I didn't see it. I don't really watch TV.
Maybe we'll do a clip with that Nike commercial because that was... I'll send it to you. It's
one of my teachers told me that... because I read books on writing movie scripts and books and all that. That's on my book, self-published. I'm self-published my book. So one of the things that they told me is that you can't be watching other people's stories and coming up with your own story. So right now I'm coming up with my own story, and I don't really have time to watch commercials and TVs and all that because I'm still making my own story,
Yeah.
I'm in the lab. The lab, baby. I'm working. Yeah.
I love it.
I ain't took a vacation since I've been on.
what's a vacation? Like, you love doing what you do.
I do. My man say, when you love doing what you're doing, you never worked a day in your life. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
me.
true.
I ain't never worked. I ain't never had a job.
Yeah. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming down here. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing your story. And
wasn't easy. This 2-hour drive,
yeah,
boy.
Well, you know what? Next time we'll come to you. We'll film another one. And
well, you know what you can do for me?
Yeah.
My dispensary gonna be open in about 3 weeks, and I'm asking everybody that I ever helped, that I ever talked to, that felt I did anything for them, to come down. You know, all the news is gonna be there, and I want to make a big splash, because what I see happening, right? Like 2,000 or 3,000 people probably gonna show up. You know, Snoop might show up.
Yeah.
You know, 1,500 Nut might show up. YG might show up. Anybody.
Yeah.
They all really should show up. You know, really, because
yep.
I done touched them a little bit since I've been home.
Yeah.
And you know, just to come by and say, hey man, congratulations. You know, because my accomplishment to have a dispensary is a big deal. You know, when I first started trying to get it, they were saying, "Oh, we don't want convicted felons having dispensaries."
But they're the ones that are gonna make it run.
Well, you know, I had to hit them with, if it wasn't for the convicted felons, it wouldn't be legal, because nobody else was gonna stand up for the rights.
Right.
Those other people, they wasn't gonna stand up. The
right.
felons said, "No, y'all wrong. We gonna do this shit. Put me in jail. Do whatever you gonna do." And when I hit them with that, they was like, "Ooh."
Yeah.
Yeah. So me having my license is definitely an accomplishment.
Yeah.
In itself, and now I'm gonna have a cash flow that I can start exercising some of those principles that I learned in the books. You know? Because I was homeless for a while when I got home.
Right.
Did you see my documentary?
I haven't watched the whole documentary. I've watched a bunch of your interviews.
Cracking the System. They were there when the marshals put us out the house.
Wow.
Out my mama's house.
Yeah, I'm gonna by the next time we see each other. So it ain't like the rappers will
be saying, you know, like Michael Irvin was saying that his sons, they negated community. No, we really did that.
Yeah.
My baby's gonna be able to say, hey, they don't remember to being homeless, but they can say, when they say they was homeless for a while, they're gonna be really meaning it. So, man, I just feel so blessed right now, you know, to be able. Did you read the LA Times article what Jesse Katz did? LA Magazine. You got to read that one. That was dopest article ever wrote.
Okay.
Other than Gary Webb's Dark Alliance. He came and visited me when I was at Lompoc. Yep. And he wrote my obituary. So my obituary is already wrote. When I die, you know, 20 years from now, my obituary already wrote.
Oh, that's cool. By Gary Webb.
No, Jesse Katz.
Oh, got it. Okay.
LA Magazine, Jesse Katz, 2013. Rick Ross is dreaming. That's the name of it. He said I was dead and I was just dreaming.
That's a trip.
Yeah, but the article is so dope, you know. And in the article, one of the things he said, I was more buoyant than I'd ever been. Remember, he was the same guy that said when he came to see me, it was 6 months.
Yeah.
When he came, I was only in there like 6 months when he first came to see me at MCC, and he was saying like I was kind of like. I wasn't talking to my kids, right? Because I told my kids I wasn't going to prison.
Right.
How could I talk to them?
Yeah.
I couldn't face them. You know, I just was ashamed, and my humility was like, but I had regrouped. You know, I came back. I shook out of it.
Yeah.
Like, wake up.
More buoyant.
Get out of that. Get out of that coma. Yeah. You ain't in no coma no more. Wake up.
Yeah.
Go to work. You know how you got in here.
Right.
They don't let people come in here for no reason. You can't just go over there and if you go there right now and knock on that door and I want to come up in here, they ain't gonna let you in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I had to tell myself, you earn your way in here.
Right.
Earn your way out.
Well, now you're doing it legal. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Next time we do this, I'll come to you, and I would love to come up and see your businesses and
come to my dispensary in 3 weeks.
Love to see what you're doing, man. So
come to the dispensary in 3 weeks. You're gonna see something.
All right.
Bring the cameras.
Cool.
All right.
All right.